Good morning, Patrick. I hope you are doing fine. Well, when I will be taping this, you probably are still in the middle of the night. Good morning, Patrick. Well, in fact, not good morning, because when I will be taping this, you will probably still be sleeping in the middle of the night. But finally, I decided to make this show for you, this podcast. I have your cup you gave me recently, and I know I have promised you since, I think, the beginning of May, to start this, what I will call French from scratch. I think we should give it a name. Today, I will only be explaining some things, but I will not do what I call my favorite blah blah all the time. So there will be videos where you will be really learning French. Now, for people who don't know Patrick, Patrick is the son of my dear friend who studied with me in Leuven. Well, this is the city you see behind me. Behind me, you see the University Library of Leuven. Well, I studied a few years in Leuven at this famous university called KU Leuven. And I studied there with Patrick's mom. And so now Patrick came to Belgium to visit me. And then finally, he expressed his intention to start learning French. Why not? For those who don't know, well, Belgium has 3 official languages. In the center, Brussels and around, it's Dutch and French. And then there is a very small German part. But so today I will be talking a lot, Patrick, but I first want to show you. Look at this. This is the cup you gave me. It doesn't leave me anymore. It's there with a lot of my videos. And so the goal of this show is to learn French. Now, I will try to limit it to 15 minutes a week, as I wrote here. And by the way, this file, you will find the link beneath the video. I'm not sure yet, and maybe you can help me with that, but I'm not sure yet. Maybe I should make it into a podcast, so only listening, because I guess that you will probably listen to this show while you're biking to work. So maybe it's better to make a podcast without any image, so without any visual part, so that you can more easily listen to it. Well, I'm waiting for your comments. If there's any more people like Patrick wanting to learn French, well, this is the start. And so I will try to limit it to 15 minutes, maybe because I'm such a talkative person. Maybe I should put a timer. Let me put 15 minutes to be sure, to limit a little bit, because when I start talking, I do not stop anymore. If you want more information about Belgium, please ask me. I will be very willing to give it, but you will see, I will integrate it, sorry, I will integrate it bit by bit into my shows, okay? Well, the first thing to say is French is a difficult language to learn. It's a difficult language to learn, especially when you are a native English speaker. Why is it difficult? And this, I'm not saying this because I'm not saying this so that you lose all motivation. No, but you should really know what you're starting with. You should also know what we are going to do. Okay, I'll talk about that later. But so the first thing, really difficult, sorry, I need some coffee. Okay, so the first thing really difficult in French is the pronunciation. And I'm saying that because it's difficult for everybody, but it's even more difficult for English natives. And why is it difficult? And you will see, I will also repeat it when I'm going to talk about listening to French. It's because in French, we are linking all the words together. So you do not really understand where a word starts and where it ends. So it's like a flow of words. This is not the case in all languages, I can tell you. If now we take two examples, I think maybe Patrick knows some Spanish. Spanish is also a Roman language. And so if you listen to Spanish, you can quite easily, well, easily is not the good word, but you can more easily distinguish words than if, for example, you would learn Portuguese, although those languages are very, very similar. But the Spanish people do pronounce very well the words, whereas the Portuguese, it's also like a flow of sounds. Well, this is the same in French. It's a flow of sounds. Sometimes really hard to know, is this a word? Is it two words? Okay, so that's the first thing. Then really hard, and we will see that when we come to the pronunciation. Well, in French, we have a lot of nasal sounds. We have the en, un, and it's really hard if you do not have those sounds in your language. So nasal sounds, we will practice it. So you make the sound, you say the vowel, and then you pinch your nose. We will come to that. Then also we have a lot of silent letters. So as a main rule, very often the end of the word, you don't say. A lot of it is just absorbed. But there's another thing, for example, the H. The H in French, you never, ever, ever say. In fact, I should add that. That's a good thing. I should add it here to the pronunciation. Let me put it here, the H. French people are not able to say the H. So, for example, they could say a sentence in English, "Il est on its head," which is really, he had a hat on his head. But so since the H is not pronounced, very often that's how you recognize French people. So you will not hear the H. And there is many, many other silent letters. Letters you just don't say. Okay, we have another thing, which is you put the stress on the word towards the end. So in English, I will say Patrick. Hello, Patrick. And in French, you will say Patrick. Bonjour, Patrick. So the stress will be on the ick and not in the beginning. And that's with most of the words. Now, this is not an exhaustive list. There is more pronunciation difficulties, but just to give you an idea that pronunciation is very, very hard in French. And we will see later, I will explain to you, this is really important. Then, grammar. Well, grammar, I'm sorry, it's also very difficult, for example, because you have a different form for every person in the conjugation. There are very simple languages. If now I take the example of, for example, Swedish. Swedish, if you make you conjugate the whole list of a present tense in Swedish, it's all the time the same word. So if you say, I eat, the eat will be äter. You eat, du äter. He eats, we eat, everything will be äter. In French, everything changes. Je mange, nous mangeons, vous mangez. It's each time a different form of the conjugation. So that's already a hard part. Then we have the feminine and masculine words. Well, they take le or la. You will, if you say le professeur, well, it will be a man, and la professeur would be a woman. But on top of that, what you have to also change the adjective, which for example, beautiful for a man will be beau, and beautiful for a woman will be belle. So that also changes. So for everything, even sometimes adapting the verb, masculine and feminine. Okay. And then you also have very complex structures. For the moment, we will try not to do, we will use very simple syntax, very simple structures, language structures. So we'll take a subject, a verb, and maybe an object. But this is not how French people speak. French people speak in a very complex way with a lot of, I'm sorry, a lot of subclauses, subordinate clauses, I'm sorry. This is really the French way to speak and to write. Okay, then you have the position of the pronouns. Just to give you an example, in English, you will say, I talk to him. To him is at the end. In French, if the to him becomes a small word altogether, you put it in the beginning of the sentence. So you can say, je parle à lui, but you can also say, je lui parle. And the lui in the beginning is to him. You squeeze it together in one word, and it's in another position. So these are a few examples of what is so hard in French. Then you have many irregular verbs that you have in, I think you have that in many languages. I had to study them in English. I had to study them in all the languages I've been learning, irregular verbs. You have a big difference in French between formal and informal language. I'm not sure if that is more than in another language, but I must say that if I have people coming to Brussels, for example, from another country, working for the European institutions, and they say, well, I thought I spoke French, and then they go around in the city and they go out for a drink and so on, and then they say, but the Belgian people, well, this is not what they speak. There is really like an informal language, especially I'm sorry, yeah, well, maybe you've noticed that I have this iron thing on my teeth, so I'm sorry if my pronunciation is not always very good. I do my best. But so there is a big difference between formal and informal language. Then, as I said, for the pronunciation, well, so that means if the pronunciation is hard, well, listening to French is also hard. And listening, this competence, you really have to, let's say, master from the beginning. This is the hardest part, is to understand what people say. And it is the most important, because if you do not understand what people say to you or ask you, you can know many words, you will not be able to answer anything. Okay, so listening, really important. French people speak very quickly. You don't hear, as I said, how the words are distinguished. Is this 3 words they're saying or 4 words? Okay, you have many homophones, so words that sound the same but mean something else and sometimes are written differently. So vert could be the color green, vert could be a glass, vert could be 2 words, vert could be a worm, could be many things, okay? But then, just so that you do not lose your total motivation, Patrick, what is easy in French, that is that the vocabulary between English and French is very, very similar, especially when you come to a more elevated language. Why is that? So there are many international words the same in French as in English. And why is that? And I know you know that, Patrick, because you're very good at history. I saw that when we walked around together in those old cities here in Belgium. You're very good at history, although you did not study history in college. You are a doctor in physics and you're working with IT for the moment, but I know you're very good at history. So why is that? You probably know that a long time ago, and already from the Middle Ages on, the French and the English court were very, very, so the royal families, let's say, were very connected. They married together. They had, so they married together to get like more land, more power. So because of that, the languages are really intertwined. So you find a lot of words the same in English as in French. So maybe that helps us a bit, but the problem is that this is not in the very common everyday language. It's more in the elevated language. But what will we try? We will try to use those words to integrate them already in our conversation. Good. I see I've only 3 minutes to go. I really want to finish this here, this page, so that we can really start learning next time. Well, learning a language. What is knowing or speaking a language? Yes, this is a very big misunderstanding. Why? Because people often say to me, oh, but you know many languages. But to know a language, that depends. Do I speak it well? Can I just get around and order a lunch? Is that speaking or knowing a language? Can I write it? Can I read it? Can I use it on a professional level? So there is not really something like knowing a language. So you should not think that, well, okay, we will do this show for X weeks, so many weeks, and then I will know French. No, it's not like that. You can add all the time. There are certain people, I know, for example, people who've grown up in a language, but never went to school in that language. And so only know the everyday things, are very fluent, but are not able to like do a presentation in that language. Okay, so we should not worry too much about that. What are we going to do? We are going to use French for a very specific context. And so, as we said when we saw each other, for the moment, we start with visiting cities in France, maybe in Canada, and so in French, let's say in French-speaking areas. So our first goal is we want to be able to get around in French-speaking places. And then we're going to work very, as I call it, task-oriented. That means, what are we going to do? Well, ordering food, visiting a museum, like, for example, buy a ticket, greeting people, say hello, goodbye, really the small talk. And then what you really will need, and probably what is lacking to you, is that you will not, I think so, have the face-to-face interaction. So what really, well, you sitting there very far from here in an English-speaking country, you will not have the daily face-to-face interaction in French. So you will have to find a solution to that. You can, of course, and that's why I will make drill, what I call it drill videos. That means videos where I don't do any blah, blah, as I call it, but only like a video you can listen over and over again. Well, trying to train, trying to drill all those sentences and trying to get out the answers quite quickly. If ever you find someone with whom you can speak face-to-face French, that of course would be much better. Not, of course, at this stage. Okay. 50 minutes are up already, Patrick, but I'm sorry, I really would like to finish. If you don't want to listen to all of that, then you can just, well, listen to this show in 2 parts, up to you. So number 3, what did I write? How do we recognize an English native speaking French? So if you now start speaking French in a French city, how would I know immediately that you are English? And the answer is, without any doubt, the pronunciation. If you can get your pronunciation more or less right, then you can say small sentences and people will understand you. But we let's say, we French-speaking people, we recognize people by the pronunciation. Okay. First thing, which is very important, is that in French, you have to speak with a closed mouth. Your mouth should not open very widely. In English, you can really pronounce and open your mouth You don't do that in French. You keep your mouth closed, but there is a lot of tension in the lips. And so your lips go horizontally, but not very vertically open. So you've heard people who are French speaking and who speak then English to you. And when they speak English, they very often, you don't know what. That's what you hear. You don't hear it, you don't understand them because they do not open their mouth. You call this the articulation basis. That's like the whole position of the mouth when you speak. So think about it. In French, keep your mouth as closed as possible and move your lips with a lot of tension, I would say. I hope that's clear. If that's not clear, Patrick, please ask me. Then we have the famous nasal sounds. When an English native says bonjour, I hear bonjour, bonjour. I hear the N. But the N after vowel, you don't hear it. It becomes something in your nose, bon. And if it's hard for you to do it, you start with the O sound and then you pinch your nose. Bon, 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 bon. There's no N. There is no N. So try to say bonjour, montagne, en Belgique, demain, le matin, un matin, important. You see those words, you should try to train it. And so you have a vowel with an N, but could also be a vowel and an M. Okay? We will see how that goes as soon as we get into the dialogues, the conversation. Okay. Another thing is the R. The R. Okay. The R in English is your tongue goes up. In French, you do not use your tongue. It's just like a very soft, and I say soft, scraping sound in your throat. Try to make a sound in your throat. In the beginning, you can make it harder. But people think it's like in French. It's not. Don't make it that hard. Make it very soft. But feel it in your throat and not with your tongue. Your tongue is not in it. Forget your tongue. Make it in your throat. So a very soft scraping sound in your throat. So you would say pardon. Don't make it pardon. Not necessary. Pardon. Very soft. Bonjour. Even if you don't hear the scraping sound at the end, that's fine, but place it in your throat. Au revoir. Grand, grand. You hear there's almost, I'm sorry, no scraping, not grand. Grand. Prendre. Can be a bit more rolling in your throat, but not necessarily. Okay? Good. So the R, we will have to practice. Then, the big thing is also that in French, there are no diphthongs. And diphthongs, what is it? It's like a sound, and you add like a small sound at the end. Like, for example, if now you would say the word road, in English, you would say road, and there is like some kind of, you will hear, I'm sorry, yes, doesn't accept the ROWD word. It's a bit as if you say ro, one sound, O, and then it's as if you road. In French, the vowels are very flat. If you have an O, it's just O, A. E. So, for example, E is a very good example. If an English native says E, this person will probably say A. It's like some kind of a Y glued to it. There's not. It's just E. Let's analyze the word feeling. It's if you see, it's as if you say feeling. I exaggerate, I know, but it's not like there's just the E. It's like feeling. There is something in between the E and the ling. Well, in French, if a French person is saying this word, it would be feeling. Fee, flat sound, not fear. Not. This is really hard when you're English speaking. Then you have the U, which is quite okay for English speaking people, but the U doesn't exist in English. The U. You make like a small circle with your mouth, a lot of tension, and your tongue is there also. Not ooh. Let me find like the wall in French is mur, not like mur, no, mur, hard. I have to practice that. And then, as I said, the H does not exist. There's no H. French people are not able to pronounce the H. Some people are, maybe, but I mean, in French, there is no sound, no H. Okay, so the last thing to say is, well, our context, what will our context be? We will be learning in this context. Patrick is coming to Europe because his company wants him to set up a sister company or a subsidiary in Brussels. Even though Belgium has 3 official languages, Patrick decides to start learning French. He will speak English for his professional activities, but to get around in Brussels, he has to speak at least 1 national language. Miss A, that's me, his mother's friend, yes, I need a comma, will help him. So this is going to be our situation, Patrick. You are living in Belgium, in Brussels temporarily, and you want to learn French just to get around. Okay, well, this was my first video. Next time, we will already get into learning some French. You can give me feedback as much as you want, I'm sorry. See where you want to go. If you're just happy with it, you don't have to react. You just can leave it like that. But I will try to limit it to 15 minutes next time. Well, I'm going to continue to drink my coffee. I will post the video, but probably you will see it some hours later. Good luck, Patrick. Good luck.